Welcome to SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. I'm your host, Susie St. Angelo, and thanks for being here. Today's episode is called Ayurveda for Modern Women. And my guest is Hannah Levin, an Ayurvedic practitioner. She's also the founder of Heartfelt Wellbeing, LLC. She's a yoga instructor, artist, and has her master's degree in teaching. And I really think you'll enjoy our conversation and learn a lot about Ayurvedic medicine and treatment and how we can use food, lifestyle changes, and herbs to heal us. It's a fascinating conversation, and I hope you'll stay tuned. This podcast is for you if you know you want to change something. Maybe it's your career, your health, or another aspect of your life. And you might be wondering if this is the right age or stage in life to make that change. And you don't know where to start. Well, maybe you're one of those people who's also caught in analysis paralysis. I see you, I hear you, I understand. I was the same way. But stay tuned. You can always get a good tip from my guest or even from me on how you can make small changes that'll make a big difference. Your health is really important. So just a reminder, you can find this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, iHeart, Apple, and Amazon platforms. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Now let's get into today's episode and meet my guest, Hannah Levin. Hi, Hannah. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great today. Thank you. And thank you for being on SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm looking forward to our conversation today. I think it will be informative for a number of people, including myself. And so I wanted to first begin by talking to you a little bit about your background and how you got into what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. Well, kind of growing up, I grew up in an artistic kind of alternative community. And my parents were really interested in food as medicine and living a really healthy lifestyle. So that was kind of ingrained in me from really early on, although I started having some health issues, especially when I was in high school, which kind of, long story short, was the result of living in a house with mold and being on round after round of antibiotics eventually, which destroyed my gut. Long story short, it put me on the path to find a lot of my own healing modalities. And I explored a lot of them and found some help in certain areas. But nothing that ever really was like, oh, this explains things or really heals me fully. I became a yoga teacher in 2004 and found a lot of support through yoga. And my students were coming to me and asking me about their health. Like, do you have any suggestions for sleep or digestive stuff or whatever? And I was like, I can barely keep my own act together. Like, why are you asking me? But I realized I was seen as a source of health information in my community. And I needed to do some big healing myself. By the time I was in my mid-30s, I got a precancerous diagnosis, and that was kind of a big. I love the expression like getting hit by a brick of life. It's just kind of like, ooh, like this is something that I need to pay attention to. And so I would say before that, I was kind of limping along with some herbal stuff. I did try pharmaceuticals for a little while for anxiety and depression, sleep, things like that. But then I decided to go to Ayurveda school. And Ayurveda is basically the healing science from India. Ayur means life, Veda means knowledge. So it's like the knowledge of life. And that dovetailed really beautifully into my love of yoga. the same origins and healing traditions. So I went to school for Ayurveda in 2015, and I've never looked back. Ayurveda has healed me entirely of all the things. And now I specialize in women's health, and I run a year-long program as my primary focus for women called the Vitality Circle. And I right now am particularly focused on the perimenopausal menopausal journey, partially because I'm now 47 and that is where I am in my life. And I've also just learned so much from my clients who are journeying through this time. And I see that the only options that Western medicine offers are pharmaceuticals or procedures, basically. And there's so much more. And so I'm really focused on supporting us all to live in rhythm with ourselves and with nature to create the most ease and joy in our lives.
Well, I'll tell you, your story is familiar because a number of women I've had on this program have all made leaps in their life through health journeys they had either earlier in their childhood or like me as I was, in midlife, and I'm postmenopausal. So I knew nothing about it. My mother was deceased, and my sister wasn't that helpful, truthfully. So I think what you're sharing is vital, especially now since we're having more of an open conversation about menopause. It's not taboo.
Right. And it's a much needed conversation as women are living longer and there's more support.
Mm-hmm. And truthfully, I'd like you to talk about, Ayurveda and what it is. I know it's old. I know it's thousands of years old, but specifically, how is that different from Western medicine?
Oh, yeah. Well, so Ayurveda originated in India over 5,000 years ago. So it is very old. And I like to point out things that don't work, don't stick around. And this has stuck around for a very long time. And is now, I think, becoming more popular in the West than in India, which is kind of cool. It's universal knowledge, and it's really the knowledge of the grandmothers, and the general principles can be applied to any culture. I'm clearly not Indian. I'm of Eastern European Jewish descent. But the principles, it's like if we trace back to any of our lineages, it's the grandmother wisdom. It's the wisdom of healing with food, of knowing, when we can do different lifestyle practices that can support us, and also healing with herbs. So if we look at those general practices, those are found in any culture. So Ayurveda gives us this framework that is still so applicable to being human in 2025 because our human physiology hasn't changed that much in 5,000 years. The technology around us has changed tremendously and it's affected us, but actually like how we're structured, how the nervous system, digestive system, circulatory system, the brain, it all is pretty similar to how humans were 5,000 years ago. So how it's different from Western medicine is that I think it's based in something that is a lot more tried and true in a sense. Like there's so much in Western medicine that we're like, we don't know the long-term effects of this, or we don't know, Ayurveda has this lineage of thousands and thousands of years. We kind of know where things lead. Ayurveda is based in 5 elements, and similar to Chinese medicine or Tibetan medicine, which both grew out of Ayurveda as it traveled across Asia, it's aligned with nature. So I would say that's the first way. It's very different from Western medicine. If you go to an allopathic doctor, they don't ask you, are you eating seasonally? Are you, balancing? In Ayurveda, we call it balancing with the wisdom of opposites, which is really simple. Like if it's cold outside, you want to do warm things. You want to eat warm food. You want to wear warm clothes. You want to take warm baths, right? We don't want to be eating cold food when it's cold outside. Right? That's just one simple example. But then within this elemental understanding, individually, each person has a doshic makeup, which is their individual constitution of how those elements align to create their unique being, body, mind, and spirit. And so this is a second way that it's very different from Western medicine, which is that we look at each person as their own unique universe. There's no one size fits all. It's not a, if this, then this wisdom practice. It's a who are you? How does this show up for you? So, for example, something like high cholesterol, right? In Western medicine, we just say if it's high cholesterol, then you take a statin. It doesn't matter how old you are, how big you are, if you exercise or not, what your stress load is, if you work nights, what you're eating. No, you just, if this, then this. But Ayurveda really looks at who are you, right? And what is causing this elevation of cholesterol, because that can happen from many, many different sources. Right? So that individualized awareness, I think, is another really, really key piece. And then another piece is just the alignment with, we could call it chronobiology and seasonal rhythms. So that's nature or elements, but in this whole other way that involves rhythm, that we are rhythmic beings. And when we live in alignment with the rhythms, life is a whole lot more easy. We have more space and time open up. Health and vitality become abundant and inevitable. And Western medicine is just discovering this, like this field of chronobiology, this awareness of that, our hormone cycle, our digestive system cycles, our like bile production is at its height in the middle of the day. Yes, Ayurveda is known to eat your largest meal in the middle of the day. Lunch is the most important meal. Our bile production is at its height. We have the most digestive capacity. And then we don't need to be eating so much in the evening. But we live in a culture where like you come home, you reward yourself with a big, heavy dinner, and you go to sleep. Anyway, we live arrhythmically. And so Ayurveda just has this beautiful teaching of rhythm that is very easeful. It's not rocket science. You don't need lots of medications. So Ayurveda uses food, lifestyle practices, and herbs are the main three avenues with which we heal. And it's amazing how much we can heal, whether it's autoimmune conditions or diabetes or, high blood pressure, cholesterol, weight gain, insomnia, headaches, all the things that we can really address through diet, lifestyle, and herbs. And we don't need to be on medication, and we don't need to have surgery. Sometimes those things, thank goodness those things exist, right? But it's not the only option. And so I think Ayurveda really offers what I would love to see as an integrative approach. Like each system has its own skills. And Ayurveda really offers like true health care. Like we're caring for our health. It's not a reactionary system, right? Whereas like, I think Western medicine really shines in the emergency room. If you break your leg, go to the emergency room. If you have a heart attack, go to the emergency. Don't go to an Ayurvedic doctor, right? But if you're looking to empower yourself to be the happiest and healthiest you can be for the rest of your life, Ayurveda is a great path to go on.
So I think that was a great explanation, first of all, of Ayurveda. I became aware of it when I picked up a couple of books at a yoga studio, and it talked about it. And then it talked about the three doshas. Can you speak to those three doshas and how they interact with us? What are we assigned one? Are we a combination of them?
Yes, these are great questions. And yeah, lots of people are very curious about dosha. So dosha literally means constitution or energy. It also means fault, which is like, if you think about a fault line in the earth, it's like where the plates shift and things go out of balance. So keep that in mind as I'm describing what dosha is. So we have these 5 elements in Ayurveda. There's space, air, fire, water, and earth. And those 5 elements make up everything, whether it's our qualities of our body, a mental state, the weather, a season, a life stage. Everything can be brought back to its elemental qualities. But Ayurveda further simplifies things really beautifully into these 3 doshas. And the doshas are made up of 2 of the elements. So we have Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And Vata is made up of air and space. So it's very mobile and light and changeable. Pitta is made up of fire and water. So it's very hot, focused, passionate, linear, organized. And Kapha is made up of earth and water. So it's very stable, grounding, solid, loving, supportive, gentle. So those 3 doshas exist in everything. In us, we all have all 3 in us, however, in differing amounts. So we are gifted a certain doshic recipe when we are conceived. So it has a lot to do with the state of our parents when we're conceived. And so that is what we call prakriti. And that's like your special recipe. That's like where you are going to be your happiest and healthiest self. And then we have something called vikriti, which is imbalance. And that can come in very early in our lives. So if we have some traumatic things happen in our childhood, most of us have some things that knock us off balance a bit in childhood, then we start to create these ways of showing up in the world that aren't our authentic selves. It's not our prakriti anymore. It's functioning from the vikriti, the imbalance. So over life, we accumulate imbalances. So multiple vikritis. And this also comes in when we're living out of rhythm with nature, with the night and day cycles, with the seasonal cycles, with the season of our lives, and with our true selves, our dharma. Yeah. So this can go from the very tangible to the very esoteric and conceptual, right? So dosha can also show up in life stage, or it does show up in life stage. So childhood is predominated by kapha dosha. It's where we're building the foundation for our lives. And so we want a lot of earth and water, nourishment. Think about how much a person grows from 0 to 20. A body, just the physical earth and water body grows, right? So that's kapha time of life. And then we switch into pitta time of life. So this is our time of life where we're building, we're on fire, we're creating, our career, our new community, our family apart from our family of origin, our mark in the world. And this is a time where we're really kind of needing that inner fire to propel us, right? So that will have an influence on everybody, whether they're Vata, Pitta, or Kapha predominant during that time. And then when we shift through menopause for women, we go into Vata stage of life. And so this is a time of life where we are connecting more with the spiritual. We're letting go of the material and shifting more into what are we here to learn and to cultivate as the wisdom of this lifetime. And so when we look at kind of the stacking of these, prakriti, vikriti, life stage, and then the season of the year is also, so summertime, when this will be released, is governed by pitta dosha. So we're all going to be experiencing some influence from the heat, from the light of that time of the year. Now, if you're more pitta predominant, you're going to be sent more out of balance during pitta season. Yeah. And same for Vata and Kapha. So Vata season is fall and early winter. Kapha season is late winter and spring. And so when we're in the season of our predominant dosha, then we really need to take good care of ourselves a little extra. Yeah. So then we're balancing with the wisdom of opposites. Yeah. So, Pitta predominant people in the summer are really going to have to make sure that they stay cool, right? They're not like getting too overheated. So I hope that's helpful. There's, each of us has I'm Vata predominant with a high secondary Pitta and hardly any Kapha. I have just a little bit of Kapha in me. But then I've had imbalances from all three doshas that I've healed.
Is there a test, or is that part of your year-long process, your year-long program?
There are tests, and there's actually one on my website at heartfeltwellbeing.com. So my business is called Heartfelt Wellbeing. And if you just go to heartfeltwellbeing.com, right there, when you log in to that, or just get on that webpage, there's a dosha quiz that you can take.
Perfect. I'm actually going to try that after we end this call. So I think I did it years ago, but I honestly didn't remember. I do like to take notes in books and things like that. So I might have to pull out some of my old yoga books and check that out. But I do appreciate that, because it's there's another program called the Energy Code. That's I'm hearing more about in the last year, where it's your makeup, it's who you are, and what you're saying is we're all bio-individual, and and you can't treat me the same way as you would treat my next door neighbor who has a different makeup. And so to learn what your top is versus secondary, that is helpful, because when you're out of balance, you're just out of whack. And I'm sure a lot of other things happen throughout with being out of whack.
Yeah. And a lot of us don't even realize the fallout from that. If this is we all know, for instance, if we're not sleeping well, right? How that affects our appetite or our mood or our decision-making capabilities, right? There's fallout from each of these things. But if that just persists over years and years and years and years, we start to say, that's just the way I am.
Yes. And I will also say what I get from my clients and just conversations with other middle-aged women who say exactly that. Well, I just was not meant to sleep anymore. Once menopause hit, I just gave up sleeping. Or I still have, lots of hot flashes or night sweats or whatever that is. But sleep is a huge one. Sleep is universal with men and women. So
yeah, it's a place where we heal, and it's totally necessary. Yeah. So in the Vitality Circle program that I run, it's a group program that also has one-on-ones with me. So there's 10 habits that we are cultivating that everybody's working on. And these are the chronobiology pieces, right? We're finishing eating by 6 o'clock each day. We're going to bed before 10. We're waking up before the sunrise and greeting the day. It's these pieces that all of us benefit from because we're diurnal creatures, because our digestive system functions in rhythm with the sun. There's these pieces that are inherent to being human. So that's one layer that we work on, and everybody's working on these 10 habits. And then there's the one-on-ones with me. And that's where we really dial in. What's the Vikriti? Where's the imbalance? And then what are we doing specifically with each person, with food, with lifestyle, with herbs, that then brings them specifically back into balance? But a lot heals just with the habits.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
It's they're working too. It's not like, oh, the habits are over here. It's getting in rhythm heals a lot too.
Yes, I agree.
It's super powerful.
I made a switch 9 years ago from traditional Western medicine to functional medicine, and it was an education, and it did take me a while. But once I was in it, it was amazing. It was an amazing transformation, and I won't say I won't ever go back. I'll need Western medicine for some other things going on in my world that I don't think that a functional medicine person can heal, mainly like foot issues or some hip issues or whatever. So I'm a firm believer in it. So it took an education. Talk to me about the people and how they find you, because I would imagine it's an educational process for people to go from Western medicine. People still don't quite believe me and my journey because they're still in the Western medicine side. Can you speak to someone who reaches out to you? Are they someone who already knows a little bit about you and what you offer? Or is it someone with a blank slate that you're going to start from the very beginning educating them?
So most people that find me either through having connected with me in some way. So I have a Facebook group and a YouTube channel, and I'm on Instagram. So maybe they've seen me there. But a lot of people also connect with me through friends that have worked with me. So generally, the clients that I work with have like tremendous transformation. It's very obvious to their friends and family that there's a huge shift that has happened, and that people are curious, what are you doing? What's this new thing that has changed your life? So my business is built a lot on word of mouth. Sometimes people hear me on podcasts and reach out. But I really think, it's important to find your teacher, and so having that, the concept of Ayurveda can appeal to people, but are they interested in going on this year-long evolutionary journey? Or do they want to just go have a consult with an Ayurveda practitioner somewhere and just get a little bit of information? That's really the discernment piece, right? And so I'm really in it for the depth journey. I want to walk with people to really live into their full potential. And some of what I do looks a little bit like therapy too. I've been trained in a trauma healing technique. We work a lot with mindset and stuck stories. And so we're really looking at these, what arises when you start caring for yourself. And especially for women, we've spent a lot of our lives being entrained to make sure that everybody else is okay before ourselves. We put ourselves last or not at all on our priority list. And especially as we age, kids move out of the house, maybe retirement, and then we're kind of like, oh no, I've neglected myself, or like, what is this relationship with the self? And also what that looks like in relationship with other people, right? So whether that's primary partnerships or, children, parents, friends, what does it look like when we start saying, I talk a lot about listening with the ear of your heart to what your body is communicating to you, because it's always talking. And it's so incredible when we start listening, the depth of the wisdom that shows up. And so then we can show up in our families, in our communities as this healer. I mean, really, I see the women that work with me as training them to be self-healers. Like they know to listen, what the communication means and what to do. My hope is to make myself, unneeded in this situation, unnecessary eventually. So in terms of people finding me, I also just kind of energetically trust that the people that are aligned with the way that I work find me.
Yes, sure. Can you speak to a few success stories, just a few examples that people can understand that they come to you maybe with a certain issue and the transformation that's gone on?
Sure. Yeah. So many. Yes. One that I can think of is a woman who owns a scuba diving company, and she takes people all over the world and leads scuba diving trips. And she was having such intense digestive distress. She's in her 60s, and was ending up like in the emergency rooms in different countries because she was just really having, she calls them gas attacks. And so she was just like, I can't live like this anymore, and she had also gained a bunch of weight and wasn't sleeping well and had a lot of arthritis. If you understand Ayurveda, you can know that all of those things are connected. And so, yeah, I mean, she did the Vitality Circle. Within a couple months, gas attacks were gone. She really dove into what she was learning and aligning with the seasons and other things. So she lost some weight. She also had better labs. Like, she went to the doctors and they were like, your cholesterol and your blood pressure and everything looks amazing. And a lot of times what doctors will say is, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. They're not really interested in knowing. They're just like, whatever you've been doing, it's working. But they're not really curious about what Ayurveda is.
Nor do they have the time to spend to educate their patients on alternatives.
Well, and a lot of them don't even know. They don't even know what else is out there. I mean, most doctors only have a half an hour to an hour of nutrition training in medical school. That's appalling when so much of our health derives from how we're fueling our body, what we're eating, the energy with which we're eating, the prana in the food. I mean, it's appalling, right? Yeah. And then, like, other people who have been on lots of medications for, all sorts of things, whether it's SSRIs or proton pump inhibitors or allergy medications, things like that, over time, like, really nourishing themselves, building up the strength in their bodies, knowing how to be in rhythm, knowing how to listen. They can just let go of all of that. And I do tell people, I will not ever take somebody off of medication, but I will get you to the point where it's clear to your doctor you no longer need it, and then it's so freeing, because there's a lot of damage that's done through taking medication. And a lot of people have several medications from lots of different doctors, and nobody is overseeing the whole cocktail that they're on.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I would think, I'm going to talk finances. I would think that Ayurvedic would be much less expensive than had the person stayed on a Western medical protocol.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And I think we have to look at it as a return on investment. Like, to work with somebody, most Ayurvedic practitioners and doctors do not take insurance. And so you're paying out of pocket. But what you are gaining from that investment is so much more than what you would ever get. And the quality of your life will improve. I've had people tell me that they think they've paid for the Vitality Circle through saving on their grocery bill, because they're buying less groceries, but it's more nutrient dense food, right? They're cooking whole foods from scratch. So much savings happen there. Another woman in the Vitality Circle said that she could have paid for Vitality Circle for what she used to spend in a year on wine. And she came to the conclusion on her own that alcohol just didn't serve her anymore. That's not a requirement of being in the program to not drink, but it is a requirement to notice how things are affecting you and to be in alignment and integrity with your highest good.
Sure. When I went on my health journey and lost quite a bit of weight, I was just frustrated because I was pretty much postmenopausal, and I was wondering why what I was doing in my 20s, 30s, and 40s wasn't working in my 50s. And my body just had changed, and it just couldn't do all the cardio, and it needed that rest, and it needed strength training, and it needed walking and yoga and other things. And it was such a wonderful relief to release that. And so one of the things that I hired a health coach, because I didn't know what to do. I was at wit's end.
Good for you.
And so she she set me up on this app, and she wanted pictures of everything I ate. And within the app, at each meal, it said what time was I eating, how was I feeling before, any emotions I was experiencing, how I felt afterwards. And, just noticing my moods and my emotions was a big game changer, because those are areas that you can notice, and they're triggers. And once you know what your trigger is, then you can correct it. So it was that little step, even though it was a pain to do every time, it was so important, because we so often we do eat our emotions, and we don't name them. And I had to sit and name them and own them.
Yeah. And then see the correlation of like, what food choices did you make and how much quantity did you eat? Right.
Did I
Yeah.
self-sabotage?
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. And our relationship with food, especially as Western women, is pretty complex. And it is wonderful to have the guidance to unravel that and be supported in that.
and I think, it's also important, with depends on where you are in your life, how busy you are. Eating out, eating fast, is just common, and what a difference in affordability and in your lifestyle when you can cook at home, and you can cook color, and you're just, it feels good. It might sometimes it's a little lonely eating at home, and it'd be fun. It's fun to go out, but when I do go out, I do a little prep work. I kind of look at the menu ahead of time and see, what are the options that I might enjoy when I'm out there. So, but I always appreciate it when I've cooked at home, and I know that it's cost less money and it's healthier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I really encourage my clients to get instant pots. I think those are a great creation for our modern lives, and it's very easy. Even if you're super busy, I really encourage folks to prep all your meals for the day when you're making breakfast, and then you're not tempted to, run through the drive-through or, grab something, a snack bar out of the pantry or whatever. It's like, no, you have a home cooked meal. And having the same thing for lunch and dinner, just a larger amount at lunch, smaller amount for dinner, is a game changer. We do not need a different cuisine at every meal. Really don't.
That's a really good tip, actually. Are there any herbs that are universally beneficial?
I wouldn't say universally beneficial. I mean, it really depends on, we have these three questions, like for who, when, and how much. I would say there's herbs that are more commonly used in our modern day because there's some general things like, a lot of people are dealing with anxiety and overwhelm. And I mean, the state of our world is something that is a lot to process. So um, along those lines, I would say ashwagandha has gained a lot of, gotten a lot of accolades lately, and the synergy that it has with Brahmi is very nice. So ashwagandha and Brahmi, or go-to cola, is another name for Brahmi, and that's so ashwagandha is an adaptogen. It's helpful in depletion issues. So it's been touted as a herb for like men to boost their sexual prowess. It's been touted as a adaptogen for autoimmune support. I mean, it's kind of gotten all these different labels, but it's also just really helpful when there's any kind of depletion. And then Brahmi is very helpful for clearing the mind. Like, it's nourishing to the mind. It's not a sedative. So it's not numbing the mind, but it's clarifying for the mind. So I would say those are two that I recommend a lot and encourage people to use. But I also really encourage people to find out what are the herbs where you are. There's Ayurvedic herbs. And I do mix custom formulas for members of the Vitality Circle. And finding what is even growing where you live. So, like, I drink nettles infusion almost every day. Nettles grow where I live in southwestern Virginia. They're full of calcium and iron, and they're great antihistamines. I used to be on like every allergy medication, and I don't take anything anymore. And I just sail through the spring and the fall because I've got nettles as my herbal ally. So I really encourage folks too to connect with what's growing wild where you live. What can you eat? What can you make teas out of? Because the macrobiome really informs the microbiome. And we want to have a really healthy, happy microbiome. And so while we can be like, oh, there's these Ayurvedic herbs and, all these funny words we can say, some of the names of them like Shankapushpi or Kapikachu or something, they're fun to say. They need, most of them are still grown in India, and while they do certain things, there's also herbs that grow here that do similar things. And so I studied Western herbalism before I studied Ayurveda. And so I'm constantly kind of marrying the two. And I think that, we don't need to be purists. We're looking for what serves us best. And I think the closer to home, the more local, the more sustainable, all of these things are, the better.
Yeah, as a side note too, I read somewhere that honey, you really should eat honey that's local in your
Yes.
in your neighborhood. Okay.
Yes, and don't cook honey because that kills all the good stuff in it. Yeah.
Right. So, can we talk about mental health and do you speak to that with your group and individual conversations?
Absolutely. Yes. And I mentioned before that I've been trained in this trauma release technique that I use with members of the Vitality Circle. And so when we come up to often we'll have something that triggers us that's happened recently that triggers us into where our brains go offline and we're in a sympathetic nervous system state, and we're not able to function very well in our current life. A lot of people right now are walking around in a triggered state and don't even know it. So I do really support people. We look, if we look at it doshically, like the Vata imbalance is anxiety, the Pitta imbalance is anger or jealousy, and the Kapha imbalance is depression. So if we look at those tendencies, we can also see kind of the elemental nature and what needs to be brought in. So with anxiety, there's a lot of ungroundedness, kind of spinning, not having direction or structure. And so bringing in grounding practices. So, part of what I love about the way that I've set up my business is that I can work with people with all the things that I have. So I might give them a yoga practice or a breathing technique. I also have a background in the arts. So we might sing a song or do a collage or something too, do a dance. And then with Pitta, the fieriness, like having practices to cool down. So that might be breath work. It might be this trauma release practice. It might be, doing some other practices. We implement a lot of different, different techniques, working with things like The Work by Byron Katie, Upper Limiting by Gay Hendricks, all sorts of things. And then Kapha, the depression often leads to stagnation. So how do we move energy and recognize? I think a lot of the work that I do also comes down to emotional education, that a lot of us have been trained out of acknowledging our emotions or even knowing that we're having them, especially uncomfortable emotions like anger. And so just giving, we can also sometimes use like nonviolent communication or looking at lists of feelings and needs from Marshall Rosenberg. These frameworks help us just name become familiar with, and also honored that we're not so weird. And some of what I do also aligns with internal family systems. So looking at the different parts of us, and most of us are most familiar with the parts of us that are the judge or um, the taskmaster, and I really encourage everybody to cultivate a connection to their inner cheerleader. Like, what's that voice in you that's cheering you on? Like, you got this. This is going to be awesome. Like it's so great that you're even trying, that kind of voice is so helpful, so sometimes our conversations I had a conversation yesterday with a client where she was like, I'm just going to report from my inner cheerleader to you today, and I'm like, great. I'm so excited to hear what she has to say. So I think having a space where we can have those types of conversations and acknowledge that, everybody is here to grow and change. There's, no shame in trying things. It's actually expected. And then we learn and grow together. It's very, very cool. I wish there were more communities like this out in the world.
I agree. And I'll speak to the breathwork side. As I became a breathwork facilitator last year, after the year before witnessing someone in our life who was having a panic attack. And I knew it because I had them when I was in college, my senior year. So I was able to use some of my training before I went to breathwork school to help this person. And two people that next day, including the person, said, I'm glad you were here to help and see those signs. And it was just really moving for me to be there and to help. And, I want to help people. You want to help people. We all do. And so what I've learned through going through a breath work, I did pause, which was a 6-month process. And they tell you the first 2 months, you're just going to work on yourself. And, you think, I don't have any trauma. I don't have anything that needs to be released. And yes, most everybody probably does. It's just buried there. But as as we define what breath work is, it's a tool. So you are helping people create their toolbox, as well as I am with, this is a tool to help you when you notice and when you are aware of what is happening in your body. And you can see the transformation pretty quickly. I remember years ago, it was 5 years ago, almost 6. It was 5 years ago. And I went to the spa and I had a Reiki healer see me. And then she saw me the next day and she said, do you have a few minutes? And I said, I do. She said, did you ever have temper tantrums when you were little? And I said, no, we weren't allowed to have temper tantrums. We were very behave in our, box. She said, I'm going to teach you how to throw a temper tantrum because I think you have so much energy trapped and stuck. And when she did, I walked out and complete strangers commented on how lighter I looked and felt. And I did feel, it was emotionally draining, but again, it was another tool in my toolbox. And so, there's all different things that we can do to release that past, and to comfort that younger self who needs that hug. And so you're doing exactly that, and you're looking at it holistically. It's not just food and exercise. And I get that.
Yeah, a lot of people, when I say I'm an Ayurveda practitioner, they're like, oh, you teach people how to eat. I'm like, oh, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of misconceptions that you that you hear about what you do.
Yeah. And it is a whole different, like you were saying before, it's a whole different paradigm, a whole different framework for working with somebody. People in the Vitality Circle also have access to me, via text or email. And so I tell them, if you wake up in the morning with a sore throat, if you're, not sleeping well, if you're whatever, and you don't have a coaching call scheduled with me for another couple of weeks, text me, email me. Like, don't be like, I have to suffer or struggle, or don't take yourself to the doctor right away and be like, oh, I had to get on antibiotics. Like there's other options. And that can take a while for people to like really understand. Like they're like, oh, but I don't want to bother you. I'm like, I can only help you if you show up. And I have boundaries. I don't respond right away over the weekend. Like you cannot call me. You can text or email me, right? Like these are my boundaries, but I want people to be in touch because then we can actually do the work.
I think we as women don't want to be a burden in general. And that's what I hear. That's what I hear from my own clients. That's what I hear in these conversations, and yet we are so much more powerful when we can be vulnerable and in tune with ourselves.
Exactly. And what we might say is a burden, like, I don't want to bother Hannah. I don't want to be a burden. Think about if somebody reached out to you and said, I'm having a hard time today, and I thought of you, and would you be willing to take a few minutes? Don't you feel so honored? You feel so incredible, like, wow, what a gift that this person sees me as somebody who could help them, and that they trust me and they can be vulnerable with me. When we're on the receiving end of that, we're like, you're not a burden at all. But when it's us and we're like, oh, I don't feel good, or I'm really struggling with this thing, like we're so scared to ask, ask for help, ask for support, ask for just somebody to listen to us. A lot of us are verbal processors too. And so sometimes just saying like, I just need to talk I did that the other day with a business idea with a friend. I was like, can I just talk to you? I just need to talk this through, and there was emotional stuff showing up there for me about, fear and stuff, and it's just great to have that ability, that capacity to be like, no, I need somebody else here. The point is not for me to go this alone and act like nothing bothers me. Quite the opposite.
Quite the opposite. And I will say, I've used this example. I spoke to a woman who was a marriage therapist and marriage and family therapist. And so I said, I'll use this example. I moved back to my hometown last fall, and my friends, said, well, let me know if you need any help. People say that all the time. I thought, I'm going to take them up on it this time. Normally, I would have been so strong and said, oh, no problem. So I lined up that first week. I lined up a couple dinners. The first night, my friends came over, husband and wife, brought a bottle of champagne, brought dinner in, so I didn't have to think about that. Second day, I had a good friend organize my kitchen. I had family members with a separate little move and dinner. It's just, they want to help if you will just allow people to help you.
Yes. Way to go for doing that. Congratulations. Great
It was
job.
a shock, but it felt so great. It felt good for them and it felt good for me. And it was a win-win.
Yeah. And we're meant to be in community. Like we have built our culture on this individuality that's toxic. It's so toxic. Everybody doesn't need their own everything so that we can be so self-sufficient to not need each other. It's making us sick to be so isolated, to be so individualistic. And so when we can reach out, when we can say, oh, it would be lovely just to have a meal brought, or could you help me move this furniture? You have a truck. Could you bring it at 3 p.m. tomorrow? People are like so grateful to help, so happy. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And there's something else you'd said that I was going to react to, and I forgot what it was. Oh, well. But I wanted to ask you about the menopause. Let's come around full circle to, what you were mentioning when you were introducing yourself. Is there anything you'd like to share about the perimenopause, menopause time to anyone who's listening that may be going through that right now?
Yeah. There's so much I want to say because I think there's a lot of fear and misunderstanding around it. One is just understanding the terminology and what is actually going on. So perimenopause is usually 7 to 10 years leading up to menopause, and menopause is just one day in your life that is the 1-year anniversary of you not having a menstrual cycle. And then after that one day, you're postmenopausal. So unless today is your 1-day anniversary of not having a menstrual cycle, you are either perimenopausal or postmenopausal if you are somewhere between mid-30s and 85. I don't know, however old you might be. So when we're in our late 30s, early 40s, a lot of people will be like, oh, nothing's going on. But if you tune in, there are changes happening. And a lot of us just say, oh, it's hot flashes or night sweats or your period gets irregular. Those things generally come much later. There's this window 2 to 3 years on either side of that 1 day of menopause where things are pretty intense for most people. Things have gotten more and more intense in modern culture because of so many other things, living arrhythmically, more toxins in our environment, not knowing how to really take care of ourselves, not eating real food. So there's a lot there that Ayurveda can support. But really, I think it's the acknowledgement that we are changing who we are during this life stage. And I like to point out that menopause is basically the second puberty. So if you think about yourself pre-puberty, when you were a little girl, right? And then who you were. So puberty starts with the 1 day where you get your period. That's called menarche. That's the 1 day there, right? And then you're having periods. They're irregular for a while for most people. But over the next 10 or so years after you start your period, you're going through puberty. Your body is maturing to be a woman, to ultimately bear children, whether we decide to or not. I never had biological children. I have 2 stepkids. But our bodies are changing for yeah, you have 3. Our bodies are changing to be able to fulfill a biologic purpose. Yeah. And then we're going through menopause. Our culture says do everything possible to stop that process and to remain in pitta stage of life, to remain young, dye your hair, take hormones, don't eat, right? So we're still maintaining this like expectation. You were saying, you were trying to do things after you were through menopause and postmenopause that you were doing when you were in your pitta stage of life that worked for you to lose weight and be healthy. Now you're in vata stage of life. Those same things will not work. So I would say the big travesty, I think, is that women lose trust with themselves. There is never a point in your life where you can say, I've figured myself out and that's smooth sailing from here. No, we have to stay awake and alive in the conversation. And so when we're going through this perimenopausal journey and then into postmenopause, we're shifting deeper and deeper into vata stage of life. The qualities of vata are cold, dry, light, mobile, subtle, and rough. So you'll notice things coming. Maybe your hands and feet are cold. Maybe you're, not having such supple skin. It's drier. It's more rough. You need more lubrication in your digestive tract to have a good bowel movement. I mean, and we think of these things like, oh, old people need these things. But if we understand that this is part of the life stage and it's part of being attuned to how we tend to ourselves, that we eat more warm, moist, mushy food, and those of us that are vata predominant, like I need to eat that way anyway. Like I'm going to have to eat that way even more when I'm, postmenopausal. And just recognizing that it's like we can thrive at any age or stage, but thinking that we are supposed to stay where we are is so unfortunate. And if we live into the wisdom years, if we really embody that our wrinkles mean that we are wise, that we've lived life, that we have things to share with people, And we appreciate life in a very different way when we're in that Vata stage of life. We're aware of our mortality. We've lived more of our lives than we have ahead of us. And so that, I think, is really beautiful. It's poetic. It's a time of life to tune into creative pursuits and the things that really make your heart sing. And especially in this day and age where our world is changing so much, how much of that external chaos are you bringing in? How much do you protect your own peace? And it's powerful if we allow it to be.
It is very powerful. And, you spoke to not loneliness, but being alone and sense of community is huge. And they've said that people's mortality rates can be assigned to whether they're alone or lonely. And if they don't have a social community, a network. And we've seen that with the Blue Zone, Dan Buettner. So, but we've also see that women can come out on the other side much more creative. They much more expressive. They're thriving after they've been in menopause, and for a lot of us, it's shifting careers. It's going from what I see as corporate to a totally different side of themselves that just needed that freedom.
Yeah, it's a time to be really authentic.
Yes,
Be like,
very
what am
much
I here
so.
for? No more messing around.
Yeah, very much so. I fully agree with that. So, Hannah, I want to ask you what your SOS is. What is that one or two things that people who are listening or watching can take with them and either start to do or something you would suggest?
Well, I would say the big picture of that is living in rhythm. And the things for me that really support me feeling great are to not eat within 3 hours of going to sleep, be asleep before 10 p.m., and then wake up before the sunrise. If I do those things, I am good to go. And it's really supportive. It's like so simple. It's hard to implement in our culture that's like eat dinner late and stay up late and sleep in. That these are all like you're free, but those rhythmic things are huge. And if I do those, I feel fabulous, and so do my clients. So try it.
Yes, and a routine.
Yes.
It's putting your body on a routine, and I've always read too that you should wake up before the sun so that you can see the sun.
Yes, and your energy builds with the solar energy. Yeah.
Yes. And so I guess I want to ask you too, is there anything that we have not talked about that you want to share?
I just really like to remind people that you're never stuck. That we can tell ourselves these stories of, like we were talking about earlier, like this is just the way I am, or now that I'm, over 40, or now that I'm 70, like this, right? So I really just encourage people to question that and to seek out healing traditions, seek out people that you feel aligned with that can guide you, because there's so much more than what most of us are aware of in this life, and we're energetic beings above all else. And so yeah, get curious.
Hannah, I love that, and I can relate to that and speak to that so well. And sometimes I'll say to people, your new life will cost you your old one. And for me, that was so very true and yet so beautiful because I've found so much of myself and authenticity now, and just being in a really good place with the right people around you that are supportive and the right habits. Just a few changes can make a huge difference, small changes. So I really salute that. And I so have enjoyed our conversation. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say that you have such a beautiful smile. When you smile, it's like radiating. And I just love getting to see that, like knowing a little bit about what you've journeyed through, and just seeing your radiant smile is just like Yes, that's that's such evidence of your healing path, and it's beautiful to see. I know some people will just be listening to this, but Susie has a beautiful smile. Um,
Thank you.
and yeah, and I think that's so important. Like, we need to remember to smile
Yes, we do.
to,
That's another good tip.
to bring that joy up. I think joy is part of our revolution right now. It's just like, don't let the joy be stolen. Okay, how can people find me? You can find me on my website, heartfeltwellbeing.com. You can also find me on Facebook um, and YouTube under Heartfelt Yoga and Ayurveda with Hannah. I'm also on Instagram, Heartfelt Wellbeing. And I would just love to connect with folks. You can do the dosha quiz on my website. There's also a sleep guide. Both of those are free, and we'll put you in a little sequence of further information. And I do send out a newsletter every Sunday. So yeah, I would love to connect with anybody who's listened to this and feels aligned.
Well, I'm actually going to sign up for all those things. I'm going to do the dosha test here today.
Awesome.
So Hannah, thank you so much for being on SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. It really has been a pleasure. I've enjoyed this. I've learned a lot about what you do in Ayurvedic habits and modalities, and I'm eager to put this out into the world and to see how people will react to what's available to them, that they're not stuck. So I do hope that our paths cross again.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Well, sadly, friends, that's all the time we have today. Thanks for listening or watching SOS for Your Life, Emergency Wisdom for Everyday Life. And thank you, Hannah Levin, for being my guest today. I enjoyed our conversation. It was helpful to learn about Ayurveda and how going from a Western medicine to something that's been around for thousands of years and can really change our life. So I'm interested to see how many people will go on this journey to learn more about their health and themselves in the process. So a quick reminder on how you can support this podcast: like, share, and subscribe, and send me a review or any question you might have, and your question might be answered. And if you'd like to be added to my weekly email newsletter, feel free to send me your email address and I'll add it. If you have interest in coaching or breathwork sessions, or just curious about it, let's jump on a call. So thanks so much. Take care, and I hope our paths cross again.